All of these traders, again, what do they share? One is the edge, but two is they are trying to compete, but they're not trying to compete with another trader. They're not looking on Twitter and going, oh, he made 2 million, I only made 1 million, that's terrible. No, they're just trying to compete with themselves. They're trying to optimize their performance. They are reviewing their performance as an individual trader. So they will look at their performance for the month and say, okay, I did this great, but there were some mistakes there that I need to focus on and optimize and do better. Or even better than that, this is working. This has edge right now. This is in play. How do I maximize this going into the next month? They're constantly reviewing their performance. And that's what it takes to be a 7, 8, 9-figure trader. This social media stuff, for example, right? Any of these guys that we've talked about, any of them, the verified guys, they're not even on, they're on social media, but they're not on it like in terms of, when I've sat down with other social media traders in the past, they'll talk about, the drama that's happening in the space, whether it's like prop firms or whether it's another trader or this guy did this and this guy did that. These guys ain't talking about nothing. Like they're literally just talking about the markets. They're talking about that. That's what they're focused on. And that's what it takes.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Forex Beginner Podcast. It's your boy Calvin here, and we got a special guest in the building, Mr. Riz. How you doing, man?
It's great to meet you, man.
Yes, it's a pleasure, bro. It's a real honor. Love everything you're doing. Riz is the host, if you didn't know, right? I mean, you should know, but he's the host of the Words of Wisdom podcast. Amazing work you're doing. Just seeing the professionalism, the quality, the dedication that you're putting into every single episode, having a team, all of this stuff, traveling the world. I love it, man. I love it. And so when we had this opportunity to connect and possibly do a podcast together, I wanted to do it, bro. I wanted to do it. So thank you for being here. How you feel?
It's an honor, man. I feel good. I feel like I'm a bit drained than normal because it's been a huge tour, but thank you for all those kind words, and the same right back at you. I've been watching your journey and seeing the come up and seeing the different things that you've done as well, and it's always amazing to see. It's good to see different styles, different ways of doing the same thing. And it's always a blessing to see that, and I think it keeps us all driven. I think
Absolutely.
each one of us, regardless of what we're doing, how successful we are, it just allows us to, hopefully the right way of thinking it anyway, is just let it drive you more, push you more, and to be able to connect as well is always great.
Absolutely. It's great energy, and just our pre-talk was just refreshing. So just tell me a little bit about yourself, man. Like, are you married? Do you have kids? Where are you located? Like, give me some general information about yourself.
Yeah, so I am married, and I do have kids, much to their I don't know how to say it, like it's been a tough month, it's the longest I've ever been away from them, so I've been missing them a lot, but I'm actually situated in England. Everyone thinks I live in Dubai.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
that.
And I think it's more so because like some of the decent episodes that I've done well early on were in Dubai. So everyone just assumes I live there. But I've never said that I live there. But yeah, I live in the UK, man. I was born, raised there. And yeah, it's great. But yeah, wife and kids, and a huge part of the success. But it's been a tough month, bro.
Yeah.
It's been tough, yeah.
Wow. So, like, just give us some context. So, how long have you been on the road so far this year? So, we're in January. What's today? The 23rd of January?
Like
okay.
that, yeah.
So, how long have you been on the road so far this year?
20 days now. 20 days. So we left on the 3rd of January. Well, I left my house on the 2nd of January, but the first flight was on the January 3rd. We've done 12 flights. We've done 10 states. Wow. We've done like 23 podcasts.
Oh my goodness.
It's been quite the tour. Yeah, like setting out, I already knew it would have like its difficulties and challenges, but obviously we embraced them, of course. But it was much more in a way than I thought. It was much more in terms of that fatigue comes in later on. Like early on, we were feeling great. We were sticking to a really good routine. We had a plan. Like if we're going to do this, we need to be thinking about our sleep. We need to be thinking about our diets. We need to be thinking about our exercise. We need to be thinking about trying to have some form of routine. And it was good. It really was. Like the beginning, it was on point. We were doing it. And then somewhere near the middle, I think the time zones changed. Like we went from 5 hours behind to like 8 hours behind the UK, right?
Wow.
So that was a huge difference. And then in the beginning, especially, I was waking up at like 4 or 5 a.m. naturally because I was still on UK time.
Wow.
But I was going to sleep at like 11, 12. So then every day I'm having like 3-4 hours sleep, which I was fine to begin with, but I think it started to catch up, And then sometimes the nights would get a little bit later, or the routine wouldn't be as good, or more importantly, the flight would be positioned in a certain way, which didn't give you much rest time. But we fought through it, and we knew this was, we embrace it because it's necessary. And you really get that energy out of two things. One, to perform. Like it's really weird because like we can be talking about trading right now, it'd be the same thing, right? You want to perform at your best. But my avenue and my peak performance and my focus is the podcast and the content. So but I'm doing the same thing. I want to perform at my very best. So you drive through it. You want to provide value to that audience. You're meeting people and you owe it to them to bring your best, versus, you thinking, this is my show. This is my show. It doesn't matter. I can do what I want. No, you want to pay respect to the guests you're getting, so that you're giving them your best. So it was good. And then we pushed through, and we ended up in the. I'm glad we're doing it in this studio. I'm a huge fan of this studio, and throughout the trip we had some of those challenges as well, in terms of production quality problems that certain studios were using and having to navigate. And luckily I brought my main guy, Josh, who's on my team, who's been with me from day one with the podcast, with me for that very reason, for that very reason, so that if anything happens in the studio, I have someone who knows what to do and what to ask and what to put in place. And so thankfully he was there, and thankfully some fires were definitely put out. I can tell you that some fires were definitely put out. But it's been a great trip, man.
Man, that's so dope. So I want to get into this because I think it's easy for people on the outside to look in and be like, oh yeah, man, he just got it made. He got the perfect camera angles and it all looks so well staged, and he's getting the top traders, the top guests, all of this stuff. What goes into actually putting together Words of Wisdom, like podcasts? Like, what are the amount of team members you have? What different, areas have to be involved to book, a verified trader who is really retired and has nothing to gain by having exposure? What goes into your podcast, man?
It's a lot, man, and it's changed over time, to be fair, as you can imagine. So like starting out, for example, just to keep it brief, it was just me and my friends, like my friends who traded, people who were just within my immediate network. They weren't necessarily the best traders, they weren't necessarily profitable even, right? And we would always highlight that. We would always just talk from the perspective of what we were dealing with now. Sometimes because they were friends, we'd end up on just tangents. It wasn't even trading specific. Because when I started out, the plan wasn't to have a trading podcast only, right? It was to be more diverse, to be able to have conversations about all sorts of different things. But as the time went on, it just became more niched, And that's why the name was never like trading related, because it was meant to be this thing. And if you actually go back, I had episodes with my brother-in-law, I have an episode with my mom twice, actually. I had an episode with a boxer, for example. Early on, you can see that was the case. But even then, I always had an emphasis on just trying to bring a quality thing, because that was the one niche. Because there were other, I don't really class them as podcasts, but there were other interview style things, but they're all on Zoom. And for me, the definition of a podcast is just something in person. I think the quality of conversation is just unmatched in person, because when it's on Zoom, the internet gets in the way, plus you're not in the same room, and the tonality isn't really, and the energy isn't really there the same. But anyway, that's why production quality was important to me, because it's like, this is going to be in person and we want to grow. And I would learn though as I went along, because for me, when I first started, I thought podcast was a conversation. We talk back and forth and that's it, versus the comments and feedback I was getting is, hey, you're talking too much. And at first I was a bit like, I would reply saying, but it's a conversation. Then I quickly realized that actually no, podcasting is more of an interview. It's a bit of an art form in a sense, like you need to listen really well and just listen 90% of the time. So yeah, it's been a journey. But in terms of team members, it was started off just me and Josh, as I mentioned. He's been there from day one. And without him, I don't think the podcast would be where it would be today, for sure.
Wow.
But we've expanded over time. So the way my team is constructed has literally been people who have shown value before thinking about money, be thinking about being part of this big thing. And one of my integral team members now is my good dear friend who's been friends with me for 10 years. He's known the journey from before trading.
Wow.
Right, known the journey and what my mindset was like. And even though I was always hardworking, I had a vision, but it wasn't towards trading, so I hadn't even come across trading yet. But he's been around, and he would help me for free. He would help me to find studios. He would help me to find guests. He would help me in just logistical things and sort of the organization side of things. And then I got into a position where I could hire him. And that was a huge blessing. And that's the biggest part of this. One of the biggest parts of doing these endeavors is being able to provide that, a bit more freely. It's a huge job, so it's not like he just makes a couple calls and some research. It's a huge undertaking. That's one thing that we thrive ourselves on, is we have a small team. It's not crazy huge, but the team is full of A-star players for now, and we're always trying to hunt for more, and it's very difficult. But yeah, every single person on the team is someone who provided value. So even my short form editors, for example, they sent me a clip first. I bet you get all those messages and emails.
Yeah, and I never look at them. So after this, listen, I'm learning as you're talking, so I'm definitely going to be paying attention to a lot.
Well, the thing is, with like most of those messages, right, that you're getting, it's the same as mine. They'll be telling you, hey man, like, your stuff's right now isn't that good, I can make it better. I ignore 90% of the time I ignore those people, or I'll reply to them saying that is like the worst way to approach a potential client, because you're basically telling them your work's terrible off the bat. Like, what sort of rapport building? What these guys did is they sent me a message or an email and they said, Riz, I watched your last episode, or this particular episode, loved it. I made a free clip for you, and it's already there. So not like they're trying to get you to reply and then they'll say they'll make one. That's annoying as well. But they actually sent a free clip. Right, and I checked the clip out and I said that this looks actually decent. Usually what I'll do then is do a little test. I'll say, hey, make me 4 or 5 clips by tomorrow or the day after, like a decent deadline to show it, some sort of urgency. Give them some tips of how I like it and what sort of style I want, and then they come through. Right, and if they come through, that's amazing. Now we can start to work together. And to be honest with you, I've only got 2 like that. Right,
wow.
One's from the Philippines and one's from Kenya. And it's a blessing to be able to interact with them and to be able to, again, be part of this team. And again, very early on, our Kenyan short form editor called Evans, he was an integral part of our success as well. Because before that point, we were only doing trailers. We weren't doing short form and cutting the pieces up. And he was an integral part of starting to put out actual short form content, which is a huge part of the algorithm, the posting schedule. And without him, I don't know if we would have done it sooner or not, because he just came out of nowhere, literally, like at the perfect time when momentum really started to pick up. But now the team consists of a graphic designer, the long form editor and trailer editor, which is Josh, our 2 short form editors, and my main guy, again, who does all the logistics. So for a trip like this, this trip cost us...
Yeah, get into that, please.
I know, like, it's very easy to assume, like, I can imagine they do it with you as well, like, to assume a podcast is just some cameras, maybe a quick studio, and it costs nothing. It's easy. But the reality is when you're doing it at a high level and you're focusing on production like you do and I do, and it costs a lot. And it's not to say anything, it's just that's just what it is. It just does. And if you want to do that at a high level, you have to be willing to take the risk. And you have to be willing to accept that and handle that risk accordingly. So this trip, for example, like I said, it was 10 states, 12 flights. It was about 40 to 50,000 pounds, so maybe like $60,000. And again, that's not like flying luxury. That's not staying in luxury hotels. That's mainly the studios, right? And yes, the travel costs because it's so much. But mainly the studios was the bulk of that cost. One studio in Chicago, amazing studio, right? Cost $6,000, that one studio.
And how long were you there today? Just one day? Or
it was like 6 hours on one day or 7 hours on one day and then like 2 hours the next day.
Wow.
Right? But it's just the quality. Like again, the emphasis on the quality of the production and the studio and the sets. You just got to pay for that quality, right? And it's worth it on the back end, and you're hoping that you get an ROI based on the episode, the performance, and just to dispel like a huge myth when it comes to these podcasts and YouTube videos as a whole. People assume, you're probably making hundreds of thousands, 6 figures or maybe 7 figures from your YouTube views.
No.
Right?
No.
And people... No. It's crazy. Like, don't get me wrong. The YouTube views for myself, for example, probably about £5,000 on average a month, give or take. It fluctuates, which is still a great amount of money for sure. But could I use that money to fund the podcast at this level? No. Could I have funded it on that money early on? Yes. But I didn't have that money early on, right? Because the views wasn't there early on. But yeah, that's the level in terms of the cost of the trip. Now, the logistics of the trip was working out, okay, first contacting all the guests that we want to get. How do we do that? Every avenue possible. Any avenue. So it's not even just social media. It's just finding any possible way to get in touch with people. But what I will say is when you build a good rapport with your guests, which I'm sure you found as well, is they will open their network to you.
Absolutely.
Right? So integral part, Jack Schwager, Market Wizards author. Huge integral part of this course.
By the way.
Yeah,
great interview.
Thank you. And there's huge props to him he opened my eyes. He changed the podcast, which we'll come back to. But thanks to him, this tour was really a huge integral part thanks to his network, because he put us on to good 5, 6 of the Market Wizards throughout his series. So that's what helps as well. But just being willing to get rejected, because even at the very early stages, I would DM Raja Banks, I would DM all these guys, and a lot of the time they wouldn't see it. right?
Yeah.
They won't even open the message, right? Which is no problem, because again, I know what it's like now in terms of the amount of messages you get. It's hard to keep track, but you have to be willing to accept that, you're not going to get a reply. People will say no,
Absolutely.
right? But my mindset has always been to back yourself in terms of, they might say no now, or they might not see it now. But that gives me motivation and fuel to work that much harder, that one day they want to. If anything, it flips the entire script where they message you.
Absolutely.
And say, hey, I would love to come on, or I'd love to connect. And I think that's really kind of the driving force of a lot of the podcasting side, or the drive to do this stuff, is that pushing the boundary, pushing your limit, pushing the level that you get to where it changes the perception. Changes someone's perception. Someone changes their mind. Someone, opens their eyes to, oh, actually, this person has value. I want to be part of that.
Absolutely.
Just trying to contact as many as possible. Once you have that, now you got to work out the route, right? You have to work out what is the most optimized route to do this tour, right? What airports? Okay, now what studios? Do the research on the studios. Pick and select the studios, right?
Are you doing that, or one of your
so this is
team
between
members?
me and my friend who's been with me for 10 years, right?
Perfect.
So he's like my logistics guy. He will literally do all of that, in terms of the research, and then we'll sit down together and make choices accordingly. And so when we made all these choices, now you need to make the itinerary. He will then send me calendar invites, so then on my Google calendar every day I can go on my phone and just see, exactly what time's the flight today, what time is the studio time, and so on and so forth. Here's the addresses, everything, so it makes it much smoother and easier rather than me checking emails, checking notes, or whatever it may be, because that would be very chaotic. And then it's handling the fires, though, right, on the actual tour.
Yeah.
Because the fires they're the hard bit, really, because we'll have guests last minute cancel, right?
Really?
For whatever reason, not mainly, a lot of the time it'd be like ill health, or a particular circumstance that is outside of their control. And then you're in a position where, as one example, one cancelled in Chicago. And we had actually moved the state of Chicago on our entire tour, because it was meant to be the 3rd state, and it ended up being the 9th for this guest, right? Because that was the date they could make. And then now something's come up where they can't make it, yet you've done all this change for them. But you can't take it personally. It's not a personal thing. It's just circumstance. It's life. And it's about how you pivot. And then we ended up getting in touch with a phenomenal trader. The episode literally dropped right now whilst we're on this podcast, who's a quant trader. Probably, and I'll say this openly as well, this trader probably shouldn't be on my podcast, right? He shouldn't be probably on any of our podcasts because of the level they're at, right? They're a quant trader, manages hedge funds, speaking in such depth and complexities that are far beyond my understanding, right, in terms of options and how they observe the markets. But it's a huge blessing nonetheless. But the fact that he accepted last minute, it's like the stars align sometimes. And you just have, but the thing is, if we, let's say, our mindset was instead, this guy's pulled out, this sucks, and just in this negative state, not really proactive, not pivoting, not trying to be and make something good of the situation, that would never have happened, And I think that's so important, regardless of trading or business. Everything I think personally in terms of success is translatable, is universal, right? So universal principles that will make you successful, whether it's trading. There's tiny nuances for sure, of course, with everything, but for the most part, the foundation is all universal, regardless of what you do, right? And you see the comparisons between, especially with trading and performance sports, right? High-performing sports, because it's the same mentality.
Yeah.
It's those reps, it's the review process, it's all those things, and it just translates beautifully. And I think it's a great thing because I know a lot of people are fans of those things, that they're their hobbies. So if people can really start to align, what does it take to be an elite soccer player, an elite football player, elite basketball player, and then be able to look at the mindsets of those individuals, like your Kobe Bryants, or your Michael Jordans, your Shaquille O'Neal, their mindsets when they were at the peak of their performance, what were they doing? If you just replicate the mindset and bring that to trading, for example, or any other business, you won't be instantly, obviously, successful, but you build that foundation to then be able to go on to the nuances of that particular industry. And thankfully, I've always I wouldn't say I've studied in depth like these minds, but I've always been focused on what their words are, listen to their words, listen to some of their podcasts if they've done them, or interviews that they've done them, or famous quotes that they've had. And a large part of what I've done is really just off the shoulders and off the hard work of others as well. Being able to look at someone else from a different industry, let's say, like podcasting wise, look at what they're doing and go, wow, okay, they do their lighting in a particular way, or their camera set up in a particular way, or their hooks, or their short form, whatever it may be, and then go, okay, that seems to work, it seems to be engaging, it seems people are liking it. How can I replicate that? How can I take my own spin on that for our industry? Sometimes it doesn't work. That's happened a lot. And you have to fail probably more times than you succeed. But if you're not willing to try, you'll never get to a point where you'll go, that works. Well, this is the thing now. And just like trading in the markets, the algorithm or whatever the social media space changes frequently. Like what's in, what are people engaging in? What do people want? That changes so frequently. And so you have to be able to pivot. And like I said, it's just so translatable.
Yeah, it really is. You have you're so calm and chilled, and you have such a bright perspective on life, and you're so positive. Has that always been your demeanor? Like, has that always been your outlook on life? Or was there a pivotal point in your life where you saw that change come in?
In a way, yes. In a way. But it's really weird because I kind of forget about, and I don't know if that's a good thing as well. I would say so. But I always kind of forget about the harder times or the struggles that I've had, or my mind just doesn't frame them as negatives and things to think about and sort of relate to and what would they identify as, Because I've been through depression. I've been a drug addict. I was addicted to weed. Some people might not class that as really hard drugs or anything, but addicted to weed. I've been... I was like super depressed as a child without knowing, like very subconscious at this point. But I always forget those things, when I'm talking about my journey, which doesn't happen too often, but I always forget those things on a day-to-day even. I just don't think about it. And therefore it's easy to assume that I've always just been this focused, driven person, which for a large part of my life I have, and that's been thanks to many factors. But just to very briefly talk about it, but like when I was 5, for example, my dad passed away. He was murdered. And as a 5-year-old, which is crazy now, right? I wouldn't even know how to describe or anything or understand it. But it's crazy now because now I have a 5-year-old who's going to be 6. And even just being on this trip, she struggled, with me being away so long. She doesn't understand. She's saying things like, I don't feel safe because Dad, my dad's away. And then I think back, like my dad just disappeared overnight, And at the time, if I think back, like subconsciously my mind goes, you were fine. You handled it fine. You handled it. But then if I speak to my mom says, no, like you struggled. All of you did. There was 3 of us, me and my 2 sisters. You all struggled, really. You all had your own, struggles and they would come up in different ways. Like for me, for example, there's our native language. I used to know it as a kid. But when my dad passed away, it just completely blanked out. Wow. I just completely avoided speaking it. So now I don't understand it. But yeah, as a kid, I understood it. I spoke it. But then when my dad passed away, subconsciously, I was just like, no. And I think my subconscious mind as well, like blacked out a bunch of like actual memories or rewired memories, etc., to protect itself, right? But anyway, so that was then. Those things resurfaced when I was about 17, 18, around that age. Where I was really just getting really deep into thinking like, who am I? Like, I didn't have a dad. Who am I? How am I supposed to know who I am as a man, right? How am I supposed to get married? How am I supposed to talk to girls? How am I supposed to, shave? How am I supposed to be? So I went through a little period there where it was really bad at one point where, I was thinking I would walk to bridges and I would think about like, what would it be like to jump in this water, this river? I would cry like randomly, I would watch, I don't know if you've ever seen Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when his dad comes on the scene and then he leaves and he has that whole speech of like, why doesn't he love me? I would watch these things, and even though that was a different scenario where the dad's like, kind of decided to leave, I would still resonate and I'd cry watching it. And for some reason, I would purposely put it on to watch it, right? But anyway, it was that was an emotional time, right? But then I learned from that, and how I got out of that was just deciding not to want to feel that way anymore. I just woke up one day, I was like, I don't want to feel like this, I don't want to feel like this. This is not nice. This is not enjoyable. This isn't me. And for some reason, that worked. Like just like a switch in my mind. And then there's just been challenges, like I said, being addicted to weed. Being in that haze, that fog. I know a lot of people probably out there smoke weed and trade and stuff, and don't get me wrong, there are people who can do that. Me personally, I just think it's not a way to be productive to your highest potential, right? Not your highest potential. I think if you want to be your highest potential, let's say if you're not successful right now, you're not happy where you're at right now, and you smoke weed, let's say, or you drink quite often, or whatever it may be, like things that are kind of negatives and things that can hold you back and not allow you to be your best, just cut them out. Like literally just cut those out, because once you do that, you give yourself a chance to be your best, which gives yourself a chance to be more successful. And when you are more successful, you can choose to include it again if you want to.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was one thing my mum always said to me. And obviously, drugs and all these sort of things are deemed as quite bad in my culture. But she always said to me, look, you become successful, you make something of yourself, then you choose to do whatever you want. Right? But before that, don't waste your potential, especially in a young age. Like when you're between 16 to maybe 30, your brain is still developing. Like, so all you're doing is really harming your true potential that you may never see because of the damage you might do through these things. But thankfully, I was able to quit that. Thanks to my wife, to be fair. That accountability, that accountability, because when you're just by yourself and a bachelor, if you will, you can make all these decisions and it only impacts you. Even if, no matter how negative it might be, it only impacts you. Finances, risk in trading, whether it's the weed or lifestyle, whatever it may be, it only impacts you. So no matter how bad it is, okay, cool, but you're the one who lives with it. So if you can live with that, great. But it's when you get married or have a really strong partner, you probably live with them, especially if you have kids with them, the responsibilities are entirely different. And I had to learn that the harder way, right? Because I was still very childish and naive. I would think that, it still only impacts me. Like if I smoke weed, that's just me. Or if I lose money in the markets, that's just me. But in reality now, you're this unit. And therefore, your decisions impact everyone in that unit,
Absolutely.
So that accountability, it made me a man, to be fair. Before that, I was a kid. I didn't have a proper job. I didn't have money in the bank. I was still, but the weird thing throughout it all, to circle back to your question, is my mindset was always strong. I always believed in myself. I always had confidence. I always had a vision, and I always wanted to be successful. Now, there were times in those moments, in those years, where I did doubt myself because of failure, because especially in trading, it was mainly trading related, where I had blown up account after account after account after account. And it came to a point once or twice, like twice I would say, where I really sat there and thought about, like, is this for me? Like, not just trading, but now at this point, entrepreneurship. Maybe I'm just a failure, and maybe I should just go get a job. But I hated the thought of it. But I was willing to accept, or at least reflect on, I can't keep doing this. Like I was throwing money at the markets. Like I would just throw, originally it would be like 5K at a time in pounds, 5K. But I don't have like unlimited 5Ks, right? Exactly. I barely had 5K in the first place. So it was like 5K, lost that. Okay, let me try put another 4 in. I scrounged that together, lost that. And then it became to a point where literally it was like 500 pounds, 200 pounds, 100 pounds. Like, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
But in my mentality, it's like, I need to make all that money I lost back, and the usual stuff. And that accountability of having the partner, the pressure of that, but also the accountability of it and the drive to want to provide and do better is what then gave me the ultimatum moment, which I've spoken about a few times, which was deciding, like, are you going to change or you have to quit? Like, because you're a gambler at that point. You're just gambling.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of traders find themselves there, unfortunately. But from when I've spoken and done the podcast interviews, which I'm sure you have as well, is like you notice that there's a reoccurring theme with a lot of the best traders. Is Absolutely. They have that moment. They sit there and they go, I need to change. Regardless of whether they think about quitting, they say, I need to change. I cannot keep doing this. And a lot of the time what happens after that point is they will isolate themselves, meaning they won't be going out as much. They won't be active on social media even. And they'll just isolate themselves to really focus on the fundamentals, not in terms of news, but more so in terms of the foundation, the principles that are universal. Build them first. Really nail them home. Not even actively trading. Like for me, I didn't trade because in that period, I needed to make money. I needed to put money in the bank and not be in debt. Because I don't think you can ever trade out of debt personally. I think there are people who do manage to do it, but very rare. And if anything, a lot of the time it's lucky in a sense because they've not gambled, but they did high risk, it paid off, they got out of debt, and now they sorted themselves out, which is fine. But yeah, I had to sort the finances out. And then in that time, 6 to 9 months, I was just purely focused on my strategy, my edge, what can I plan? And never, just a disclaimer, if you will, I was never a fantastic trader, like making multi-six figures a year or anything like that. I got to a point where I was starting to see consistency, and I was seeing returns, payouts from prop firms. But soon after, the podcast started, and during that period in the beginning, I was still trading. But then, as the podcast really picked up, 2023, then I stopped trading. At first, not because I consciously wanted to. I literally did not have time, and I kept trying, and it wasn't working because I literally was juggling too much. But then I just came to the decision of, like, I'm not even going to try. When the podcast slows down, I'll then start getting back into it. But it just hasn't slowed down, and I'm okay with that. I'm completely fine when people say, you're just a podcaster. I say, that's great. I say, as long as you say successful podcaster, that's no problem at all,
I like that.
Because you know how it is. Like, just trying to do something, and then there's doing something successfully. And if you're doing it successfully, then people should just recognize that. And I get the whole point of, like, you're in the trading industry, you have to trade. I don't think so, personally. And I think that's true across, you can see that across so much of the industry. But I'm not ashamed. I've never hidden the fact that I don't trade now. I've said it so much. I say it to all my guests. They ask me, and I say, like, I started as a retail trader. I traded for X period of time, and then when the podcast took off, I stopped trading. Do I wish I can go back to it, and do I want to? A lot of the time I do, but I just know it would not work out. There'd be no point me doing it. I would literally just lose money, and then that would probably that energy would come into the pod, and I'll be sat there. You made $1 million. What? What am I doing? I'll just get frustrated. So man. I know that was a long-winded answer.
No, but that's perfect, because just going back to what you said, and just kind of summarizing it, like, I do think it's important. If you want to be great, you have to focus. You mentioned the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, the Shaquille O'Neals. When they were in their prime, we don't have to do studying. We know they were locked in on something. Championships, winning at the highest level possible. We're in Miami. When LeBron came to Miami the first year, we thought it was, we're going to the championship, we're going to win. We went to the championship, we did not win. Dallas Mavericks won. But there's documentaries, there's footages just floating around. Udonis Haslem, he uses this studio, by the way. So he's talked about that year when they lost, how, literally LeBron was locked in. Dwayne Wade everybody was locked in because they were right there. And they failed to accomplish the goal. But that next year coming in, everybody was focused. Everybody was moving at the sound of one beat or one drum, whatever the case may be, right? And so for you to be able to build this podcast that it's reaching the world, bro, like over 50 million views across all platforms, that's phenomenal. And you just started this, 2 years ago? Yeah. And so for you to bring out this type of content, to pull people out that have never been on camera before, from behind the scenes, for you to bring that type of quality that's hopefully going to be around for lifetimes to come, right? You have to focus. How can you juggle multiple things, right? And so had it not been for that decision, we probably wouldn't have some of these great episodes that we've had from you, and then the level of professionalism that you're performing at now, where you're bringing out these quote unquote dinosaurs of the industry that have just been running the game, but nobody has really heard from them. Now you're giving them a voice, and we need to hear from them, because I feel like the social media voice, it's good in the beginning when you want to get excited, but once you really decide that trading is something you want to pursue, you need to hear from the people that have been doing this for decades. So, bro, that decision, even though it may seem like, and that's just a small percent, because the love is always bigger than the hate, right? Even though it seems like people come at you, in order for that podcast, Words of Wisdom, to be what it is today, you needed to make that decision.
100%.
You needed to.
It was a thing that, like, again, it's like people make assumptions. So, like, people think, he was trying to hide that he didn't verify guests. But it's never the case. You can go to some early episodes where I actually say, like, if someone would ask, or I would just say it myself, like, I don't verify, because you have to think of it like this. Keep in mind, when I started, I had 2,500 subs. For the first 6 to 7 months, we did 2,500 subs. So that was great. That's like a double, right? That's amazing. And then, for a small period of time, it was still quite a low-level podcast in terms of numbers and subscribers. And the guests, in a sense. And no offense to them, obviously. Like I said, they were just my friends and people within my network. And it wasn't a case where it was like everyone's profitable. It was more so we're just talking from our perspective, our lessons, and things that helped us, and things we struggle with even now. And so I didn't think I was in a position to ask people for their track record or whatever it may be, because it's like, who am I? I'm like, I'm asking you to come on my show when you're way bigger, in terms of your reach and who you are and experience even. And yet I want you to prove to me you're real, right? So that was my mindset. It's like, why, who would do that? Number one, who would actually, take me seriously if I tried to do that? Cool. And then number two, again, like my level of guests, and our ethos for the podcast wasn't, we were going to be this trading podcast. It was going to be this, like I said, business, all sorts. Like trying to be like a Joe Rogan, everyone's dream of like just being able to have all kinds of conversations. Yeah. Which I still wish I could have, right?
It'll get there for sure.
One day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a mindset. And then again, another thing was like, I always thought, I'm a retail trader. Why would a professional trader come on my podcast? Why would a real great, amazing veteran come on my podcast? I'm a retail trader, I would always assume that they might look at it and go, oh, look at all these, these people, they're new, they're 5 years in, 6 years in, But Jack Schwager, as I mentioned earlier, to bring it back, that changed everything for us. Because Jack Schwager, the author of Market Wizards, the guy who literally was essentially the original podcast in a way, right? Yeah. The way he structured those books. And those books, especially after interviewing and doing podcasts on this tour with trading veterans, some of the very best traders in the world with the 6, 7, 8, 9-figure P&Ls, they got started 9 times out of 10 because they read his book. That's what got them interested. So here I am, I again, logistically and taking the risk, etc. He was in, at the time, Boca Raton. And this was only in June of 2024, sorry. And, we're not going to ask Jack Schwager to come down to Miami for our pod. We said, okay, we'll find somewhere. There was no studios there. Nothing of this sort of caliber or anything like that, or anywhere close to this caliber. There was a studio that used mobile phones as the cameras.
Are you serious?
I swear to God. I've never seen. Oh my goodness! I've never seen anything like that. Yeah,
that's weird because that's a high net worth area.
Strange.
Yeah. My wife went to school over there, so yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And then again, though, this is the thing. Like the space has changed from when I started. Just to go up, like when I started, there weren't really studios. It wasn't a big thing. Now. By now, there probably is a good studio there. You know what I mean? Like it's expanding, which is amazing to see. It just shows that there is so much opportunity. It's so easy to think like, oh, it's so saturated and it's too late. It's never too late. Like if it's something you're interested in, just go ahead. But yeah, Jack Schwager changed everything because when I sat with him and he told us, he patted us on the back essentially. He gave us really good feedback and he was like, "You're doing a great thing." And plus him doing it in the first place. And I said it to him. I said, it's a huge honor. Like, I am completely honored to have you here. Like, I am blown away. I'm so thankful that you're here and everything that you've done for the community. And, it just opened my eyes. It took away those limiting beliefs I had, right? Because at this point, I've grown. And if Jack Schwager is willing to come on the pod, that means that the door is open now to be able to try and get some more professional traders on and people from hedge funds and so on. And so that limiting belief was gone. But then equally, at that point, we'd gone over 100,000 for sure. We were probably like 150, 160. But at this point, I'm at a place where I'm saying, okay, the podcast now is in a place, positioning-wise, of authority, right? Meaning that I do have the respect and the platform to say to someone, hey, if you want to come on, can we get a 1-year track record at least, or 2-year track record, as a broker statement, something to indicate that you are making profits from the markets. What you say you're doing. So that it gives a level of trust to the audience and also trust with me, so I know that I don't have to worry about anything either. And so we started to do that. But the thing is, and this is another thing, that was back in June, July. So we made that conscious decision, but it's not something that you can just pivot to straight away. Yeah. At this point, I already had about 50 to 60 episodes recorded. Wow. So we were like a year ahead. Which isn't necessarily a good thing. Oh yeah, it sounds good.
Because things can happen and you're like, I got to pull, All
sorts. Not only that, things can happen, it gets outdated, Gotcha. It gets to a point sometimes where you're like, I can't even put this out because this is a year old,
Okay, before you finish your statement, how do you have to have that conversation with the guests that at the time, you're like, they're doing me a favor. Yeah. You know what I mean? But now as you've grown and it's like, and now they're reaching out, hey, are you ever going to put out the episode? Like, have you ever had to have that conversation?
Yeah, I've had that.
All right, so what is that like?
It's fine. Like, you think about you want to be respectful. Like, I always want to be respectful. I never want to disrespect anyone at all. It's more so just letting them understand all the reasons why, right? And how it's not in their best interest either because of how dated the episode might be. Don't get me wrong. Some people, when I went track record and I said I'm not putting your episode out, not because of track record, but just generally it's not going to go out now. And they say, how can we get it out still? And I'll say, like, just send me a track record. And then they get a bit annoyed at me because they want to send me screenshots of something else, or they want to, whatever it may be, right? And I just leave it like it just is what it is. And I'm just like, the beauty of verification is it makes your job 10x easier in a way. Yeah. Because now, before it was like, how do people get on the show? How do I get on the show? Now it's just, here's an answer. And if you fulfill that answer, you're on the show. I don't care. Like if it's a case where you've made $100,000, like it's easy to think like, oh, now you only have to make 7, 8, 9 figures to get on the podcast. No, if you made $100,000 in a year, let's say, or even $50,000 for all I care, right? But you have an incredible story, and you developed yourself, and you have an edge, right? I'm still open to have you on the podcast, because that's what it all boils down to, is like, how did you develop that edge? How have you made that $50,000, which most people don't? Simple as that. And as long as it's a minimum is a year, ideally more, ideally obviously as long as possible, minimum 1 year.
But in our space, we know
exactly. Yeah,
it's so hard. Even to tell somebody 30 days retail trade, stick to one plan. It's so yeah,
it's so true. So yeah, we made that conscious decision. So we deleted a bunch of episodes because we were just like quality control. We were like, and again, think about the monetary aspect of like those episodes' value in terms of cost, cost was about £20,000-30,000 so like $45,000-50,000.
And as they over time, they generate money. It recoups what you spend.
Exactly, that's the ideal. Yeah. But then we're deleting these episodes. Yeah,
right. Now
so
you
those
can't,
are gone.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's just the cost you eat, and you say, okay, but your focus is on quality. Your focus is on pivoting, on changing, on trying to improve always, and that's one of the improvements. So then we had to make the transition. And that isn't something you can just do overnight, because you need to go and get these verified traders, right? Luckily, though, you get, because how I would verify before, that's a good question in terms of like what people might say. I never used to just get anyone on, right? I would get people, who people are requesting. So it's like the audience wants this person on, okay. Even then, though, it's like, okay, and what does this person do? What is their, first of all, how are they promoting trading? Forget the lifestyle. I don't care really too much about the lifestyle, even if they have the lifestyle, but they're saying the good stuff in terms of risk management, edge, these sort of things. Cool, like this is the proper message for trading. So that's very important. But then on top of that, it's like, do we get consistent payouts from prop firms, right? That's great, right? Because that's a verifiable in one sense in terms of they've got payouts. However, the prop firm thing is that they could be spending more than the payouts, for example. So that's not 100%. But then live trading, right? Do they live trade in their community, or do they live trade on YouTube? That's easy, amazing, great. Or the very few who publicly already share their broker statements each year, right? That's easy. So I would try to do that. And if, let's say, for example, I had one guy on, for example, who made outlandish claims and so on, and it was the only time I've ever done it, but I was just said at the end of the episode, like, do your research, I'm not too sure about this story, and so on. I said it, I was in front of him, and it got controversy and all that, and I'm not really into all that. I know people might assume that I am and stuff because of certain episodes and certain trailers, but that's just part of the job. But yeah, like, my focus is quality. Like, how do I get as much value, the actual value that people can take action on and progress as a trader, no matter where you're at. If you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, like, it doesn't matter. Like, the whole purpose is value. Like, how do you improve? And so we had to, when we pivot, we had to then collect as many traders as possible so that we could then make this transition. And then we made the transition. It took a few months for sure to delete episodes, get out the existing episodes that we felt were okay, and then record these episodes so that when the transition happened, we had episodes to put out, right? And we didn't have a lot. When we transitioned, we had, I say it's not a lot, it's like 8 to 10 episodes. But then this tour, we've got like 20 something episodes, right? And that was just a transition it took. And I know that the very easy thing to do is to assume you would do better in that position. So people out there be like, why didn't you verify earlier? Or why didn't you make this change earlier? Or why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But the reality is, like, you don't know. Like, you need to be in that position to make that. So the way I think of it is like this. Is if someone tries to tell me what I should have done with the podcast, but they don't run a podcast, it's like your information and opinion that you're giving is completely invalid. Like it has no weight whatsoever because you've never done it. You're just assuming and making stuff up in your mind to say this is how it should be done. And I normally, if I do ever respond to people, I'll say that. I'll say, like, when you run a podcast, I will listen to you. Like, literally, you tell me you show me how it's done. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Right? You show me how it's done, regardless of what it is. It could be like, you should ask this question, or you should, do this camera thing, or you should get this type of trader. I always just say, look, I take it on board. I'm someone who tries to listen to the audience and take constructive criticism for sure. Like, take it on board, not just be anyone like, oh, you're a hater, you're this. No, it's not the right mindset. But equally, if someone's trying to like really point out your flaws from an area of no experience, I would just say it how it is. It's just like, look, there's no weight there, right? Same with like, you're involved in a certain company, or there's mistakes there, or whatever it may be. Same thing. If someone says you should have done this, or this is how you should have done it, and it's like, when were you ever in that position? Oh, you weren't.
But Riz, like, here's my response to that, right? To just go with your point. Everybody can tell you what you should have done, right? But at your job, you know what I mean? The person that's saying those comments, where you work right now, did you do your due diligence on how they really make their money, on what type of products they're putting into the world or the environment, or what's really taking place? Or are you just signing up for that job just because it pays well, right? So because it's like, but because you're a public figure, you know what I mean? There is that, but it's a standard. No, but it's the same thing with everything you do. So don't hold me to a standard that you yourself at your level, because whatever you do for a living, there's a customer on the other side. So is your company cutting corners delivering that product? Is that going to jeopardize somebody's health? Is that going to cause somebody to hurt themselves or something? Did you do your due diligence on that before you accepted that job? But that's the reality of what we do, right? Is that there is, like we talked about earlier, there's this social media way of doing things, and then there's this reality thing. And the truth of it is, you rarely meet these people in real life. Because in real life, it's all love. You know what I mean? It's always love. But it's your frustration with yourself and where you are. And when you feel like, I could be doing that and I'm not doing it the way you think it should be done, there's a problem. But the fact of the matter is, you're not doing it. You know what I mean? You're not doing it. Why? Because you're not willing to put in the work to get to this point. Because it's not a jump from level 0 to level 5.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta walk the steps, and you gotta be able to take a step back, because there's this bigger person coming down the steps, and you both can't cross each other. So are you willing to take a couple steps back and then go forward? And that's the journey to building anything of any value.
I couldn't agree more. Like, because the interesting thing is it's universal though. Because even in trading, like, I don't like the term, say, haters and all that. It's so easy to just do that for anyone who, say, disagrees with you, or doesn't believe in you. Like, but take trading as an example. You see it all the time of, like, my parents didn't believe in my journey, right? Or they don't believe in my trading. But you just have to take it from, it's all a perception thing. It's all a perspective. It's like, for them, they're hearing about this thing that is really promoted as this easy money thing, and basically sounds like gambling on the surface. It's completely against the norm of education and sort of the general route. It's even against like just normal entrepreneurship, right? I'm sure if you went to your parents like, I want to open a restaurant, they would have a bit more understanding of like, that sounds interesting. Even if they don't support it, they're like, I understand why you might think that. But if you, I want to be a trader who like, and how does trading work? I risk some money, I buy some pound, and this, instantly they're going to think, this sounds ludicrous, this sounds scammy, this sounds negative, bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's easy for them to say, hey, we don't like that, you shouldn't do that, right? And they're doing it out of a place of love, because they worry. The main thing 90% of the time will be more so that they worry about what will end up with you from doing this endeavor. They just want the best for you. So whether it's your friends or your family, that's a normal part of the journey. And it's easy to sit there and say, they're hating on me, they're trying to hold me back, they don't believe in me. No, they just don't know. And the best thing you can ever do is just work hard, right? Work through your hard work, even if you haven't got success yet. When you work hard enough, people will notice, this guy's locked in. Like we talked about being locked in. They'll notice this guy's different. Like this, he's treating this differently to anything else he's ever talked about. He's treating this seriously. And regardless if he's got results yet, they'll be like, okay, we'll step back. He's putting in that work. He's dedicated. But then obviously when you get results, it's the classic thing. I teach us how to do it, right? And it's the same though, it's the absolute same, is that people will have their opinions, and I think it's very important when you want to be successful at anything, trading, podcasting, anything, is you got to really learn how to focus on what actually gets results. Like focus on actually what matters in that moment, focus on actually what will help, not putting energy or focus into, this person has this opinion of me, or this person thinks this of me, or this, whatever it may be, like whatever distractions that are around, or this person is my competitor, right? This person's doing the same. Like you can't think that way, because all that's doing is taking, let's say if you have 100% energy in a day, you've just taken like 40% of it and given it away to these other things that will not benefit you in any way. Instead of going, okay, cool, I recognize these things, they're part of the game, they're just normal, that you cannot avoid those things. It's like trying to avoid losses in trading. It's never going to happen, right? You can't avoid other people's perception, you can't mold other people's perception. All you can do is try and show through your hard work and your focus, to be fair, like we've done now, in terms of the podcast, because there was a period of time where, of course, comments were like, I'm sick of these social media guys, I'm sick of this lifestyle guy, I'm sick of the prop firm traders, I'm sick of all this. And those people might have stopped watching. They might have. But now I'm getting loads of comments of, Riz, I'm so thankful we're getting these, and I can recognize some names where they had said those things in the past. And it's amazing though, because that's the best way to change perception. That's the only best way, and you're not doing it on purpose. You're just working hard. You're just trying to level up yourself. You're just trying to make a better brand or better business or better trader of yourself. And then you let the work, how they say, let the success make the noise. Work hard in silence, let the success make the noise. Success is the ultimate revenge, if you will, right? It's so true. Right? It's so true, because now I'm getting those comments of like, man, I'm loving these veterans. And even now though, I'm getting like, I get comments of the same manner, but against the veterans. It's like, oh man, these guys are old school, they're dinosaurs, they don't understand. I don't care about the trading.
I say that respectfully.
100%. No, but they're true as well. And they will say the same. Like even the guests who are those veterans, they'll say it like, we're dinosaurs, and the pit trading has nothing to do with now in terms of like the actual trading element. The principles are the same, which is great. But then again, it's like, okay, I take that as, for the most part, constructive feedback and go, okay, now I need to get traders in the last 10 to 20 years who were electronic traders and have the track record, who are more relatable and more...
Like the Lances.
Exactly, like the Lances, like the Kyle, Like that
Kyle
makes
is amazing, man. Shout out to my man Kyle Williams, man. That interview is gonna be fire, man.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, no.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to watch that one. Kyle is just amazing, man. He's an amazing guy. My thoughts on that, right? People need to understand, right? As we've discussed, we both have the similar start to our podcast. We never knew. You never really look at, now there are some great marketing people that can say, I'm going to build this type of, I'm going to go into that space. I know what this audience wants. I'm going to meet that need, and we're going to build the biggest podcast in this space. There are some smart people that do that. But from talking to you, it's like we both were in the same place. We're just starting, we're just starting, hey, I want to do something. I'm in trading. Let's have conversations about trading. I'm an entrepreneur. Let's have conversations about that. And for me, that's what it's always been. And I always say, if you knew better, you would do better. And up until this point, like, because of building a platform, once you cross that 100K, I don't know if it's the YouTube plaque, but people start seeing you as an authority figure, like you said. But now, because I've been reached out to by different owners of businesses around trading, and I'm understanding how we got to this place with the social media, and that's not real, and now I'm starting to understand what's really been taking place on the back end. So now I'm very guarded. Now I'm very selective. And my way of now doing things, and I'll kind of talk about that, is, so you're going the verified approach, right? What I'm doing now, and it's kind of what I've always wanted to do, is I'm really just diving into documenting my journey now. So maybe the name of the channel may change, and it'll just go back to my name, because it was originally just my name. Then I switched it once I did a couple podcast interviews, and I had a YouTube mentor that was saying, hey, I think you're great at interviews. Like, switch everything to a podcast. And it went bonkers, right? But what I've always wanted to do was just motivate and just inspire, because I am one of those guys, like, I still trade. And like, my focus for like why I did the podcast was just to kind of really get in the room with the guys I was looking up to, like Q and all these people. Like, these are people that really, if it wasn't for me watching them, they gave me the motivation to stick through this because I was already an entrepreneur full time, and I didn't really have any, like motivation to really stop doing my business to kind of put energy into learning this. Yeah. But when I saw a Q and I saw these people, these were like my idols, you know what I mean? That kept me pursuing trading. So the reason I interview a lot of the social media people, because these were the people that I personally brought courses from, people that I personally was watching. They added value to me. So my podcast has always been an extension of what I'm into, 100%. Not just what, And so I think people fail to realize the human part of us. Like, yo, you were watching the Q Banks, you know what I mean? And you're just like, man, like this is amazing to be sitting with him, right? And so, like, I think a lot of people forget that aspect too. And then so on my end, what I'm starting to do, because I want to, like, I'm big into the motivation thing. Like, that's really my quote unquote ministry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a Christian and everything is about ministry for me. I love bringing hope, bringing inspiration to people. And so the conversations that I'm having with my people is, let's start interviewing traders that they've been on the journey, but they just had their first profitable year. Maybe they only made consistently, they made like maybe a couple $100s a month, but they did it consistently. Nice. Or maybe they've been working, they've been struggling, but they got, like last year was their first year of consistent payouts with a prop firm, and they kept that account for a full year and got payouts. I want to interview some of these people because these are people that are literally still at the ground level, but they're crossing over to inconsistent trader, gambling a little bit, to being focused, being strategic, and they're actually generating something, because you know the numbers, bro. The majority of traders are failing, bro. 100%, They're failing. Yeah, you may get a 50K payout from the prop firm, but like you said, nobody knows that you invested 100,000 in challenges before that. You know what I mean? And this is real stuff that's happening in this space. And so that's kind of what I'm doing is I want to give the people that are watching or that have been watching my platform for motivation, I want to start voicing and sharing their stories and the growth that they're having. So we're both kind of in this transitional space, but I don't want people to think that it's a knock on the people that do social media, because had it not been for them, I wouldn't be in this place now. Because it was them. Those are the people. And look, every guest I've had, no, I did not verify all of them, because I'm just in a place of like, man, I'm following this guy. I got this guy's course. I got this girl's course. I know I saw them make that money. I'm in that mode too. Now you find out that with MT4, you can just create live accounts. I mean, the prop firms do it. They give you a prop account. It says live. It's not really live, right? So you learn this stuff in time. And when you know better, now it's your responsibility to do better. But I also think, as you guys watch, you got to give us grace. We're humans too. And we're learning too. And we were naive too. We thought we were going to start trading. I mean, look at you, $5,000 throwing money in, throwing in. You thought you were going to be a millionaire, you know, like right away. We all thought that. And so you got to give us some grace, y'all. Y'all give us some grace.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And, I love that though. I love that, because I think having a niche is important, having a niche is important. No matter what you do, even in trading, like you need to know what you're doing, right? What is it? What style of trading are you doing? What pairs are you trading? That's niching down. Yeah. Versus like, I don't think I've even met a trader yet who really, maybe one or two at most. And they're normally not even like trading, it's more like position management. So they have loads of like positions on across loads of different markets and pairs. But the ones who are doing like day trading and even swing trading, but professionally trading and making good returns, they niche in. Then whatever sector it might be, if it's stocks, for example, whatever pairs it might be, if it's Forex, for example, even with futures, whatever indices it might be, but they niche in. And then they know the specifics of what they're looking for and the style and all the rules, etc. Same for us. Like my niche, really my niche to begin with was in-person only and high production. That was the original niche. That was it. Even for the non-traders, right? You killed it. Thank you. It's been a journey, bro. It's been a journey.
And okay, I'm not gonna say that, but I'm not gonna say what I was about to say. But anyway, all right. Like before we wrap up, bro, this has been amazing, right? Just first of all, meeting you in person, the energy, your cadence, you're so calm. There's a sense of peace over you, right? Never change. First of all, never change, right? Okay, so let's kind of go through a couple things here, like rapid fire, but you don't have to rush, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna just come at you. So out of all the interviews you've done, so we're gonna like categorize this in like two sections, right? So with the first half of your podcast, when you were just kind of just interviewing the known traders of our day and age, what was the best interview you've done, and why was that your best interview? Or round table. It can be either or.
Round table.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
It can be either or.
Let me think quickly. Because first half. It's hard to remember every single name.
Or most impactful. Like you walked away and it's like, man, that was really good.
First half. I'd say it's really difficult because first half he's verified already, but even though he was in the first half, right? One of the very few, Umar Ashraf, of course, right?
Trade Zeller.
Yeah,
Come on.
We need to do an updated one, but Trade Zeller and just generally, again, that was probably one of the first traders where there was no doubt. I didn't need to verify because he already verifies himself, so that was an easy one, right? But it was just understanding the mindset is just so different. You know, with Umar, like he's just so different. You know this guy, and I don't know if he wants me to say this or not, or if he cares if I said that or not, but you know, this is a guy who will definitely be a billionaire. Like you just know, like just from his energy, the way he thinks. Even at that time, I didn't know him back then. It's not like I know him on a very, very personal level or anything now, but that was the first time I met him. The day before I did that podcast, we went for a quick meal, and then we did the podcast the next day. And even then, back then, I was still doing the podcast as just like, tell me about your journey. And that was it. Like 90% of the podcast was literally your journey and then little 10% of some lessons, right? But just seeing the level of insight into the trading side, let alone business side or just mentality as a whole, it showed the depth, you know, the depth and the levels that actual, you know, consistent, profitable traders go into. And I will just shout out on the back of that, there was Tans, which was very early on, very, very early on. His story always stuck out to me because it was just an incredible story, you know, incredible story. He had his parents and grandparents, like a large portion of his direct family passed away in a car accident.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then he had cancer as well.
Wow.
And yet was trading, right? And he was very insightful. You know, I'd ask him about, you know, how did it feel to lose your parents in such a way, and you know, having cancer as well. And he was just so positive, you know, positive, and he was so graceful and just had wisdom as well, and had the ups and downs in the trading journey. And that was one just stands out to me. My good friend Joe Al-Shugba, you would love him. You know, he's so in touch with his faith. You know, I used to work with him at a place which had very negative surroundings, a lot of influences, a lot of substances, and he never faltered once, like never. And he literally embodies Mamba mentality. Like that's where I learned about Kobe. I didn't even know about Kobe, but I knew he was a basketball player. But I didn't know about the whole Mamba mentality until I met Joe. Because not only did he embody, he loved, obviously, you know, you would watch videos every morning and stuff, but he embodied it. Like literally, like he was in a position where he could have just dossed around. He was young as well. He was like 18, and he could have just joined everyone else in the fun and the party and all this. But he stayed focused to his faith and his vision, and he worked so hard. And yeah, incredible. And I did a bunch of episodes of him, but he's now in a position where he's working in like an actual fund, like in professional, institutional, and that was his goal. And he's still young. He's still like 20, 21.
Wow.
Right? And he's done that how? He did that because of his faith. 100% his faith was a huge part of that. And just his determination and hard work. And I think, yeah, there's some episodes that stand out. And yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so now on this new leg, this current version of the podcast, so far, who has stood out? So of course we know the legendary Jack. Of course, that's impactful.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll exclude that one because we know that one was just the awakening moment and just gave you the confidence that you have established something good here.
Yeah, it definitely did.
So outside of that interview, what would you say so far has just been one that has just been jaw-dropping?
It's hard. It's so hard. You know why? Because it's like, you know, a book. You know, if you read a book, it's like saying, it's not necessarily the same because some people do have a favorite book, but it's like every book has something in it, you know? There's a little gem in there. Or even chapters. Like each chapter might have something in there. So it's always so hard because each trader is unique. But with the verified route, it's even better because then you know every single trader is really performing at the best, you know?
Yeah.
And then it makes it hard because each one's unique. And again, the hardest part is like me not trying to copy them. You know, this makes complete sense. I should go do this. And yeah, so like ones that stand out, I would say, is ones that aren't out yet, to be fair. I don't know when this comes out, but from the tour in particular, I would say that Lance pricing,
Lance is
incredible.
amazing. Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, though. It's not the numbers. The numbers are insane, right? But it's actually because of the mindset. Again, he literally replicated the basketball procedure. Like he would record himself when the markets were live, record it, but then he would go and rewatch it and lower the speed of what he's rewatching to really encompass and watch the bars and the movements of the candles and the market to emphasize, how he can react in real time.
Oh,
right?
That's genius.
I swear, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And again, that's just one little thing.
Yeah.
One little thing. Let alone all the other stuff. That one little thing is incredible. It's just like, why would you, again, people do that in boxing. They'll watch boxing, fights. What's his stance? What punches is he throwing? How does he duck his head? Basketball, same thing. It's like, where is their weakest link? Where is the gap? So on. And yet you just bring that to trading, But the thing is, though, it's the necessary work. People just aren't willing to do that work. They want to do the bare minimum. And so it's hearing that. It's we had a podcast which came out today, which is Jem Carson, which is incredible.
That's the quant trader, right?
That's the quant trader. But again, way out of my depth. But just to understand that there's such a level beyond that. Everyone always wants to know about institutional trading, hedge fund trade. That's where you get an insight of like, actually, you know what? You need to have a very strong intellect. You need to have a whole different viewpoint. Like literally, someone commented on the video just before we sat down. It's like, this guy's like Neo from the Matrix. And it literally is.
Wow.
Because it's like he's seeing through the market. He's not observing the market. And he says that actually. He says, and rather than everyone looks at it two-dimensionally, you need to look at it three-dimensionally. Right? And it's just like, blows your mind. Like there's just such a level. And then even just meeting other traders, Kyle, like you mentioned, Kyle, phenomenal, actual incredible journey, taking such a small amount to now into the seven figures, multi-seven figures.
Never adding any more capital.
Exactly.
That was the crazy part.
Yeah. And then just being able to learn, though. And the beauty of, like I said, being verified, it just makes it so... It just brings this, I don't know what it is, it's like you just feel comfortable, you feel nice and calm when you're listening then and when you're asking questions or even just watching the episode because you're like, I can trust what this guy's saying. I can 100% trust it, right?
Yeah.
Not to say you can't trust if they're not verified, because again, they might be, they might not have just put themselves out there for whatever reason. They might have actually gone through all those lessons they're saying. So I'll never write someone off,
Yeah.
But it just helps. It just helps when you have this little level, it's not even little, but like this level of transparency. It helps because then you get to listen and you get to have calmness to the conversation and you get to listen and really take it on board a bit more. It just adds a little bit more weight, right? And I love what you're doing though because that is powerful, because people have asked me to do that side. I've had people ask me like, can you get losing traders on, right? And it's not that I can't do it or won't do it. I just haven't done it yet. But I think it's a great concept because it's really like, okay, we've tapped into all these other minds and that where they're at in their journey. It would be great to get the same perspective on the flip side.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I'm sure you can learn so much from that as well. But yeah, like I'd say those podcasts, and there's a bunch more, but I just, it's just so hard in the moment to think of the names and all the different topics. But we've done like 20 something. S&B Capital, we did a roundtable there.
Mike is amazing.
Yeah, they're great. Like, they are just great people. And, again, their mindset of like, if you have edge, you size up as much as possible, which is the opposite of what you hear in the retail space, right? Retail space, 1% risk. Anything beyond that really is gambling. But then you got these firms who are doing like literally 7-8 figure traders. They train 7 or 8 figure traders who use dynamic risk. And that's one thing I've learned a lot is that the highest performing traders, the golden rules of trading don't apply.
Oh, come on.
Right?
Bro, oh my goodness. Yeah. I was just prepping a video about that, how, because I was just like revealing like my first couple weeks, like stats. And, like I almost doubled my account for this year.
Incredible.
But I've only taken like 2 profitable trades, but I've taken 5 trades. And like 1 trade was break even and then 2 were like 40% gainers or whatever, and then I had 2 that was losers. And what I was explaining is that I'm only trading my best setup, and I'm willing to risk 10% on that setup when I see it. But that doesn't mean I'm losing 10%. That's what I'm willing to risk. But I'm watching the candlesticks and I'm using dynamic risk. I'm scaling in. I'm reducing Once I get in, if it's not moving, I'm cutting back, I'm reducing. And so I was showing my loss, and I was like, look, I lost 2 times, but I only lost 3.5%. I'm willing to risk 10, doesn't mean I'm going to risk 10. And so some people were saying, yeah, but statistically speaking, you will have, times where you lose 6 trades in a row, 7 trades in a row. And I'm like, yes, you're thinking the set and forget way. Like if I just get in and say I'm risking 10% and it either hit my take profit or stop loss. That's the normal way that retail traders that we've been accustomed to thinking about probability and things like that. But these high players, like you were just talking about, they're trained how to scale in, how to use dynamic risk. They're not just sitting in trades, letting, like they're cutting trades, they're adding trades. And that's kind of what I've learned. And some of that I've learned from reading One Good Trade from Mike.
Definitely.
As well. Yeah.
Honestly, like the beauty of verified traders and just traders who are performing at such a high level is that there are lessons that you can learn and apply from even if you're at the lowest level, if you will, right? Or just beginning, because that's what one thing they do is like dynamic risk. You would assume is maybe that's more of an advanced concept, but the reality being though that it's something that it's kind of like if you build a bad habit. If you get used to only risking 1%, trying to get dynamic is going to be it's not impossible, of course, but it's going to be a hurdle that you have to get through because you're so used to the 1% that you're going to get very emotional when you're starting to increase and try and be dynamic. Versus if you're just learning dynamic or learning a particular concept from the get-go, you don't have to unlearn to relearn in the future.
I agree.
And I will say that there is a few principles though that beginner traders should start with one thing and then go to more these advanced things if you want to reach those higher levels, because I really believe there's certain things you have to be able to be open to reach the 7, 8, 9 figure account sizes, especially if you're doing it as just an independent trader, so not hedge fund, not traditional prop firm, not investor capital. If you're just doing it yourself, you're going to need to learn how to dynamic your risk eventually. If you really, because if let's say you're starting with even just $10,000, and that's still a nice sum of money.
Absolutely.
If you just do 1% risk, it's going to be, even with compound, it's going to be a long time, like good amount of years before you ever hit maybe 7 figures even, right? And that's just to hit 7 figures, let alone to make 7 figures, be able to withdraw 7 figures or anything like that. So it's going to be necessary part of that plan, right? And it's not something you have to do from day one. It might be the most important thing in trading, from what I've seen from all these professionals, is having an edge. Making sure you have an edge, right? It doesn't matter if that's swing trading, scalping, day trading, that doesn't matter. It all centers around edge. If you don't have that, you're never going to be profitable long term. If you don't have that, you will never make money from trading. The edge, it has to be data backed, right? So whether it's back testing, live testing, but you just need to gather some data. And the more data you have, the more weight you can put behind that statistics and the data is providing you. But most of all, from having that data, it gives you the confidence. So when you hear people like Lance and others say trading psychology isn't as important, or other people saying trading psychology is bullshit, what they're getting at is most retail traders use it as a crutch. They use it as a excuse for why they are over trading or oversizing or lost. When in reality, they just never had edge in the first place. The edge is the foundation. Doesn't mean you won't have psychology problems. It just means that you won't have it as an excuse. It will be more direct. It will be like, okay, my psychology problem actually is that I am fearful to put risk on the trade I need to put risk on. Or my psychological problem is that I will overtrade, right? Because I will take a loss and my stats say I can take that loss. It was valid, but I'm trying to make it back, so I need to address that. Versus no edge. You take these losses and you just go, my psychology, my mindset's the problem. But then you have no edge. You can't say that because you have literally zero edge. So really the main lesson from all of them, and they all have different styles, is edge. So as an example, and I'll just make this one quick because this is a really important episode that, from the second half that stood out to me 100%. So I was looking forward. I was looking forward to it. For us, Riz. Come on. I was looking forward to it the whole trip. It's so different. The edge is completely different, and this is why. Chris Camillo, phenomenal trader, has taken $20,000 to over 70 million.
Wow.
Right? How do you do it? What's his edge? He uses TikTok and X to find out. He calls it social arbitrage. So he gathers information from these platforms through comments, through articles, and other means as well, like actually calling physical stores or reading newspapers in China, for example, and translating them and so on and so forth. That's his edge. He does not look at charts. He doesn't use a stop loss, right? And he's made $20,000 to $70 million.
What?
Right? And I was looking forward to that interview because it's like, that is amazing. Like, one, anyone can do it if they want to. But two, it's just so amazing. Like, it's just so different. And those numbers are insane as well. Yeah, just an incredible guy, incredible guy as well. And you can tell, like, one thing I'll tell you is that all of these traders, again, what do they share? It's a couple things. One is the edge, but two, and again, just look how that's a unique edge, but still an edge, right? And we can dive into it a little bit more if you want. But the second thing is they are trying to compete, but they're not trying to compete with another trader. They're not looking on Twitter and going, oh, he made 2 million. I only made 1 million. That's terrible. No, they're just trying to compete with themselves. They're trying to optimize their performance. They are reviewing their performance as an individual trader. So they will look at their performance for the month and say, okay, I did this great, but there were some mistakes there that I need to focus on and optimize and do better. Or even better than that, this is working. This has edge right now. This is in play. How do I maximize this going into the next month? They're constantly reviewing their performance. And that's what it takes to be a 7, 8, 9-figure trader. And then on top of that, they're focused. Right? They're just focused on what they need to do. Right? They stay disciplined with that. Meaning that not even in terms of the plan and stuff, more so in terms of their routine. They'll make sure that they don't allow other things to get in their way. So like this social media stuff, for example, right? Any of these guys that we've talked about, any of them, the verified guys, they're not even on, they're on social media, but they're not on it like in terms of, when I've sat down with other social media traders in the past, they'll talk about the drama that's happening in the space, whether it's like prop firms or whether it's another trader or this guy did this and this guy did that. These guys ain't talking about nothing. Like they're literally just talking about the markets. They're talking about that. That's what they're focused on. And that's what it takes. To be successful, even with the podcast, for example, like if I was focused on all these other stuff, which don't get me wrong, it is hard to do sometimes to try and be focused, but as long as you can stay focused at anything, you will progress. 100% you will progress.
That's amazing, bro. Amazing, bro. I'm speechless. But before we wrap up, because we are getting on time, and I want you to get some rest, bro. I want you to get some rest for sure. If there's anything that we didn't cover that you want to share and get off your chest, I want to give you the opportunity to do that. 2, which you've already done, but if you could just sum up one thing that you want traders, as they're watching this, to take away that can add value to them if they may be struggling right now. And then last but not least, let everyone know where they can follow you. I know you started a personal Instagram where you're kind of documenting your day, well, every day of the year, basically. So let them know, like where they can update that and just kind of, just learn more about you personally outside of the interviews as well. And any other thing you got going on, feel free to share it as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to go backwards maybe because
you can
I've
do
forgotten what the first one was. What was the first?
So the first one is if there's anything that we didn't cover that you want to just share that's on your heart, share it. And then second thing, if a trader's struggling right now, what one thing would you give them to focus on to encourage them? And then last, socials or anything you want to share.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. First of all, I want to talk about just legacy. I think like that is what's most important to all of us. I really do think. I think the reason why we're so passionate about the content side and doing the podcast, I can only speak for myself, but I feel the same energy, is that you want to help people. In essence, it's about trying to help people, trying to have an impact in some way. And in this particular case, a lot, for me anyway, it seems to be through trading, right? And trying to help people become better traders. My original goal, and still my goal to this day, is one reason why we started the personal page, is to help generally, right? Help people mindset-wise, discipline-wise, self-belief-wise, health-wise, and I know obviously I'm working on that myself. But all of these avenues, not just trading. Trading is a powerful one because when you help someone financially in this day and age, in this world that we live in, it allows them time and energy on the other stuff. But legacy is so important, and the reason why content is powerful is that if I die today, there is a bank of videos of my mind and my thoughts and my body of work, if you will, that will live on forever. My kids can at least, because my dad passed away, I don't have anything, right? It's from an age where there's no cell phones really. There's some I found a few cassette tape videos that I converted into DVDs and so on. First time hearing his voice, was on that sort of stuff, But today, if I was to pass away, God forbid, my daughter and my son will be able to watch videos of me and read comments, hopefully not some comments, but read comments of what people thought about me and be able to observe that legacy. And that was powerful for me. Like, the whole reason I had that mindset growing up of, that vision and all that was, one, obviously a huge part to my mum and the mindset that she instilled into me, 100%. But equally, a big part of that was the legacy that my father had. Even though he wasn't famous, it wasn't necessarily successful, massively successful. It was just the impact he had on people he came into contact with. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't about him. He had a corner shop, like a liquor store, if you will, right? So it wasn't about the store. It wasn't about that he had a couple real estate. And it wasn't about that. No, it was people would comment on, he was such a genuine person. He was so loving. He was so caring. He was so respectful and kind. And just hearing that growing up, I used to be like, that is what you want. None of this matters. The subscribers, the lifestyle, the podcast, none of that actually matters. What matters is, how do people perceive your interaction with them, right? Regardless of whether they remember you, or in terms of like they come to your funeral or anything like that. As long as someone goes, hey, that guy Riz, or that guy Calvin, or that guy, whoever that is, they are a great person. They had good energy. They were respectful and kind to me. That's what matters. Like, that is the legacy you want. That's all that should, in the end, matters the most. And thankfully, if you are able to make money in this world and be able to upgrade yourself in terms of finances, hopefully you're going to be able to do some great things. Whether it's helping family members, that's an amazing feeling for sure. But whether it's helping strangers, being able to build schools, being able to provide resources to schools or to homeless people, for example, or any of these things, in the end, you're going to get greater feeling from that than any Rolex or Lamborghini or whatever it may be. And there's nothing wrong with those things. I always say that. Look, if your goal is to have those things, that is zero problem with that. That's all. That does not make you a bad person, a fake trader, or anything like that. Not at all. But in the end, after all that, you're still, in essence, I think it's all just ingrained in us that we want to help. Yeah. We want to help other people. We want to make an impact. And 9 times out of 10, I'm sure you felt it as well, when you talk to people who want to be traders and are traders, a large part of their motivation and drive was to, yes, make money. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the time it was to help their family. It was to be able to help others, be able to put themselves in a position to be able to do some good. And it's easy for people to look at trading and go, that does nothing for society, but that's just a lie. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you might not be in a job where you're a doctor or an engineer, for example, but you pay an incredible amount of taxes. Even if you do it efficiently, you're still going to pay taxes. But more importantly, that money goes back into the system. And most of the time, people who are traders are, philanthropists. They want to help. And, that's hopefully something we can continue to build out in this industry, create overlaps and projects that we can help promote through. So like, I did a marathon, just to keep this short. I did a marathon, which you wouldn't expect, but in 2 months of training, I did a marathon. Nice. And it was for charity. And, the mindset was I should hopefully be able to raise a decent amount. We raised about 23,000. I want to raise more.
Yeah, but that's great.
Yeah, it was amazing, right? It was amazing. But I knew in my mindset it was, and you might have seen me do it, I'm not sure, but I was literally going on my story going, all you big time traders making, 10, 100,000s, etc. I know you got money, and you've been saying you got money in my part. It's time to donate, and we're in a position to do that. We can call these people, not call them out in a negative way, but more so influence a different style within our space where we're taking that money and we're going to make an impact. So we've built schools, we've built wells, water wells, and so on and so forth. And that was primarily in Pakistan because this one guy was very smart, very, very smart. He knows the trading industry, everyone's making money apparently and so on. So if someone would post they made 10% or whatever, or 10 grand, you just comment underneath hey man, why don't you donate, congratulations, why don't you donate $1,000, we can feed these orphans, or we can buy jackets for these kids in the mountains, whatever it may be. So and he shows where the money goes, and that's with charity is hard, so that was very powerful. But we've built all these things, and you get to see the direct impact, and that means more to me than anything else. Honestly, doing that means the most, and I love doing it. And plus, you're not doing it alone. Mm-hmm. You're doing it with the community, the same community who watch the podcast, the same ones who support you and got you in a position. They're helping you do it as well. They're donating. They're spreading the word, and they're part of it. Then it's not just you. It's yes, it could be my face doing a marathon, but it doesn't matter. The marathon's nothing. Wow. What matters is that everyone else together has allowed to make this impact. And that's part of your legacy as well.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the podcast and the videos can be there. Cool, you know me. But most of all, that water well over there is going to feed generations. Not feed, sorry, but like you provide clean running water, drinkable water for generations, right? Because of that endeavor. And everyone who was involved, from the person who donated 1 cent to the person who donated $10,000, everyone is part of that. And then you're all part of that legacy. And that's how I like to think of things, is that we all help each other to grow. And that, hopefully that mindset, if you apply it to anything, right? I want to create a legacy out of trading. I want to make sure that I work hard enough so that I build myself into a position where I have a very strong legacy and name, and I'm respectable. I have honor, right? I'm loyal, and I have respect for myself. That's all your position should be. And hopefully by having that mindset and keeping that in mind, in terms of the struggling trader for the second question, is that will help you through those hard times. It will help you from when you doubt yourself. It will help you to guide you with the strong vision and focus to consistently just put in that work. Because that's the only thing that got me through the 10 years of trying to be an entrepreneur and trying to be successful and failing many, many times, big time, consistently failing. That was the only thing that got me through, is because I wanted to, my whole dream was to save the world, like to help people. But the only way I saw myself getting into that position is by becoming successful. And the only thing that got me through was that vision of legacy. And I think if you're struggling with trading, specifically trading related though, is the edge, right? Yeah. Is if you literally have two things, right? One is, if you have no edge and yet you're not getting results, you already know the answer. Just put in the work. Like really stop trading live, stop buying prop firm accounts, stop putting money into live accounts, stop doing anything other than have a TradeZeller subscription and demo trade and collect data, right? And even you can't get TradeZeller, just get an Excel sheet. Just do it manually if you have to. And that's just trying to make it easier and automated for you, but do it manually, right? And do the work. Because if you're not willing to do that work, you're not going to be profitable. Just quit. That's what I would say. Just quit, because you're not willing to do what is necessary. So if you don't have an edge, focus on building an edge, right? And there's plenty of people who talk about how to build an edge. It's literally just data driven. So collect data, get the stats, and then start to apply and find the gaps from there, like the psychological. Now let's say if you have an edge and you're still not getting the results. Now it's where you need to, I would say, one, reflect. So sit back and say, where are the gaps? Where are the problems? Is it overtrading? Is it this? What is it? But from there, the reality is, if you're struggling to identify, then it's coaching, for sure, right? Whether it's an actual mental coach, a psychology or performance coach, more trading specific, I would say. So like Dr. Brett Steenberger, I don't know if he does like retail independent traders or not, but just someone I met across this journey. Randy Howe is a phenomenal one, to be fair, and he does, I believe, I know he works with a lot of institutional traders as well, but again, they are out there. So that could be performance related. Or if there's gaps in your knowledge when it comes to strategy, like Lance just released a free version of his course, right? So as an example, but don't be afraid to get mentors. I know in this space, there's a very big stigma of people who sell courses and X, Y, Z, but I'll tell you one myth that has been busted wide open in terms of this tour is that verified traders who are making 7, 8, 9 figures have courses.
Wow.
They have groups, they have subscriptions. Why? Community, giving back, and another source of income.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that. Some of them have this source of income and donate the money. They donate it to charity, which we just talked about. And some don't. Some use it as a source of income so that there's no pressure on their trading.
There you go.
Right? Nothing wrong with that. If you think there's something wrong with that, then there's something wrong with you at the end of the day. But I agree with you. For people who, who are spreading a dangerous message of trading and then selling stuff, I agree with you 100%, right? And that's what I've always tried to be careful of as well. But yeah, if you're struggling and you feel like you have an edge, of course, like be realistic. Do you actually have an edge or not? But if you do actually have an edge and you're still struggling in terms of results or you're stagnating, find a coach. Find a coach, because it's going to help you. That's like, especially if you identify an actual problem that a coach can fulfill. Don't just get any coach. Like you identify that these are the issues I'm having. Here's a coach that can fulfill that issue, right? It's like a boxer who's struggling with endurance. They get an strength and conditioning coach. Yeah. Direct for that, or their diet, a dietitian, right? Direct to the problem. That's what you need to focus on. And I would say, in terms of socials-wise, obviously words of wisdom across pretty much all social medias. I think Twitter or X, I've got like words of of underscore wisdom or something. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the actual one.
We need to buy the other one out.
I know, I need to find who it is. I don't know why they would have that. I don't know. But that, and then my personal page is just Real Riz Iqbal. So on there, I'm documenting the year. I'm trying to do the best version. I'm just like doing, it's not even editing really. It's just putting together little clips per day. But I'm going to, once I get back, like really accelerate the levels, because what I'm doing, I've been working with a lot of the top influencers in the space and content creators, and helping them with their content and strategizing and so on. So that's something I'm moving into as well, just helping other people perform better, get as much reach as possible. We've built 2 channels in the last 2 years. Last year we built one to 50,000, our own one. So we know we have the formula, if you will. Yeah. So we're just helping other people do that, so that through that channel as well, I'll be providing more information on like becoming a content creator, but outside of trading as well, not just trading, but like becoming a content creator, having an impact, just generally as well, my thoughts, right? Because I have a new YouTube channel alongside that, which is just helping people with goal setting, with mindset, the stuff that we kind of talked about today. It's very similar to what you said, like your ethos, your mission is more helping people with motivation and drive and having an impact. Same with me, that was my original plan, and I hope I'm doing that through the trading aspect, but I don't think the trading podcast for now will change into anything else other than trading, which is fine. I've kind of doubled down on it. Yeah. But I'm just creating another channel to be able to, have that expression, on outside of trading, and try and have an impact outside of trading for those who are interested and resonate with me. Because at the end of the day, like, I know I'm not going to be for everyone. I know there might be people who don't like me. I know people might not believe what I say or whatever. I'm not, again, as we talked about earlier, that's not the mindset I have to try and convince people. It's more like, if you resonate with me, or you find value in what I say, or the lessons that I've learned and so on, then here I am. Otherwise, I wish everyone the best. Like my mindset is just, I want the best for everyone. So it's very painful when that doesn't happen, but it's part of life. And we just try and be better. And I think that's all you can do. Going back to, if you're struggling, just try and be better. Every day, in every way as possible. And I get it, life can be hard. Family, as you know, family, friends, hobbies, business, health. Like there's so many things you can focus on and should focus on. And a lot of the time it gets overwhelming, but that is very normal. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a normal way of life. That is part of life, and just accept it. And as long as you're doing your best to try and be better, and as long as your intention is always pure, and that's what I always rely on, is if your intention is pure regardless of what's happened, your intention is pure, and you try and learn and be better, you're good. You're a good person. Doesn't matter what background you have, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are. That's all that matters. But thank you, man. I know
nah, bro,
I'm really terrible at being the guest.
Bro, I mean, every episode, and it's pretty much an episode. Some weeks it's 2 episodes a week, right? You're sitting back and you're receiving the knowledge. I mean, it has to be a time where we open up the bottle and we just let everything you've been consuming just come out, right? Yeah. So, bro, this has been amazing. Bro, next time you come back, we definitely gonna connect again. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode, Forex Beginner Podcast. Your boy Riz here, Calvin here. God bless you. Wish you nothing but success in 2025. And if there's anything you picked up from this interview, stay encouraged, focus on what matters to you, and don't stop until you reach it. That's it. God bless you. Take care. Peace. All right. Hey,
thank you, man.
My man. Bro, beautiful, bro.
Beautiful,
bro. Beautiful, man. That was epic.
I just start ranting, bro. I swear.